All right, guys, so let's get into it. Let me go over how to show you how to do the kettlebell snatch properly. So we're gonna progress this into a couple of different portions. Again, I'm also gonna give you a couple of cues that we like to teach in the class, which is normally really helpful. Again, we wanna try to make this fun. Remember, working out should be fun. So from there, what we're gonna do is we're gonna stand in our stance a little bit wider. I like to think about a squat stance. Some people like to kettlebell snatch in kind of a deadlift stance, like shoulder width apart. That's totally cool, there's nothing wrong with that. From that position, I want to look straight ahead. I want to keep my belly as tight as possible. From that position, the first thing I want to do is I want to emphasize on driving the hips back. I think a lot of people, when they're doing this movement, they want to squat. They want to do this squat portion. We want to drive the hips back, engage some of that hamstring, keep that belly nice and tight when we're doing this movement. From there, the hand will go right underneath the pelvic bone. Big mistake I normally see in classes, or even like one-on-ones, or when we're teaching the classes, people will go into this like squat portion. That is something we want to stay away from. We want to actually keep the kettlebell as close as possible to the pelvic bone. The closer that we are to the pelvic bone, the better we are. So that's what we really want to focus on. From that position, I'm going to I push my hips back. I'm starting to create pressure into the ground. I want to push the ground away from me. So I want to push straight down. Like if I was going to jump, I always want to think like I'm jumping when I'm doing these movements. From there, I push the hips back. I press into the ground like if I was going to jump. From there, I open my hip all the way, trying to keep contact with my arm to my body. From there, I'll bring the kettlebell to come up. So I like to think that, and the way we like to teach this is like pretending we're going to shake someone's hand. So yeah, I know most handshakes are like this, but we want to try to keep our hand nice and close. I like to get that thumb to point upwards when I'm doing this movement. So again, I go back, squeeze my glutes, snap my hips, arm goes up. So again, hips go back, open, hips go back, open, hips go back, open. So that's the first progression that I really want to focus on. Okay, so we call it just a regular handshake. From there, what we like to teach is we want to show you to do a high handshake. So imagine I was going to shake the tallest NBA player's hand. I'm not that tall, but keep that in mind. I want to shake someone's hand. So now I'm going to do a high handshake. So I'm going to go way up here, so like forehead height now. So again, kettlebell's going to travel straight down. I push straight up, pull straight up. So that's really what I'm focusing on, okay? Again, kettlebell goes down, I snap with my hips, I open my hips, kettlebell comes up, and I'm in this like high handshake. So not like this. I see you can turn the thumb down. There is a different technique for that. I can get into that later on. But again, we're just for learning purposes, we're gonna keep that handshake kind of high, okay? Right after that, we're gonna go high, open, again, hip back, snap, open, high handshake, one more time, hip, open, high handshake, okay? So that's a good progression just to get the movement. I can teach you I'll show you some other different skills that we use. We'll actually do a kettlebell swing in front of a wall, which is always a great way of learning, making sure that the kettlebell travels straight up and straight down. If I do it incorrectly, obviously I'm gonna make a hole in my wall. That's not something I would like to do. So right after that, I'm gonna go hips back, high handshake. The next part of the progression, we're gonna go high five, okay? So high handshake, high five. One of the key parts of this movement, we want the kettlebell to wrap around the wrist. So if I can get the kettlebell to wrap around the wrist, it prevents a little bit of that banging in the back of the forearm. Again, there's a couple different styles and techniques that you'll see out there. The way, again, we like to teach it here is that the kettlebell wraps around the wrist. It gives us the ability to go ahead and do the hand-to-hand switch, which is the next progression that we're going to be showing you. So we want to go high handshake, high five. So everything is stacked. I keep my belly tight. I keep that shoulder, the hand over the shoulder. I want to keep everything as tight as possible when I'm doing that movement. Again, so we go straight down. We travel the kettlebell straight down. Hips go back. I push into the ground, squeeze my glutes, keep the arm attached to the body. Arm travels up. High handshake. We go right into a high five. Again, we travel straight back down. Hips go back. I push into the ground, squeeze my glutes, arm travels straight up. As you can see, this arm again is still bent. I go right into a high handshake, okay? So those two are key for the next progressions. Now, right after that, as soon as we got that handshake, now we need to get the kettlebell to come back down. So what most people do is that they'll flip the kettlebell over and then they'll swing it down in this position. So what ends up happening from that position, you're gonna feel a little bit of a torque in the back. Again, we're traveling, everything that we're doing, we're traveling straight up and straight down. We're not letting anything push away. So we wanna keep it as close as possible. So no, I go high handshake, high five. From there, what I'm thinking is kettlebell comes straight down. Kettlebell comes straight down. What we actually do is lean back, get the kettlebell to come straight down. From there, I go right back into underneath the hip. Again, I push, pull straight up, elbow up nice and high handshake, high five, come back down, palms are facing you, I go down, open up, and do the exact same thing. So what we like to teach when we're showing the classes, we'll do that high five position. We like to tell them flutter your fingers, so that makes it fun for the class. We'll also say, imagine cradling a baby's head, just cradling. So something that just, you want to keep everything nice and close. You want to keep the bicep relaxed when you do this movement. A lot of people will do this to this, and that's not really what we're looking for. Gravity pull has a tendency of pulling everything down, obviously. So what we're doing is going from here, let it cradle down. So you're relaxing, you're not using your biceps. You're cradling it down, push, open, comes right back up into that next position.